Don't talk, single dad, veteran saved police chief at Steakhouse. After he caught something shocking, the steakhouse was buzzing that night, polished wood, sizzling plates, the low hum of conversation. Most patrons didn't notice the man at the corner booth, but the staff did. A broad-shouldered single dad, quiet, observant. His daughter, tracing shapes in a coloring book beside him. He wasn't there to be noticed. Years in the service had trained him to blend in. But when the double doors opened, everyone turned their heads. The police chief had arrived tall, commanding, dressed down in jeans and boots, but carrying that unmistakable authority. At her side were two younger officers, both women, fresh-faced but alert. She laughed easily, but her eyes kept scanning the room, a habit she never turned off. The single dad noticed something before anyone else did. At the bar, a man stirred his drink too long, watching the chief instead of the ice melting. His left hand twitched against his leg, jacket shifting enough to reveal the cold steel of a weapon tucked where it shouldn't be. The veteran's instincts fired like a switch. He reached for his daughter's hand, whispered, "Don't talk." She obeyed instantly. She'd seen that look in his eyes before. The veteran rose slowly, carrying himself like just another diner, going to refill his drink, but his eyes stayed locked on the man at the bar. The police chief, laughing mid-sentence, caught his movement. She frowned slightly, recognizing discipline in his walk. And then, she saw what he had seen, the barrel of a pistol, glinting as the stranger shifted. Her smile vanished, but before her hand even brushed her concealed carry, the veteran was already there. In one fluid move, he slipped behind the stranger, clamped a hand over the man's wrist, and twisted. The gun clattered to the floor. Gasps echoed across the steakhouse. The younger policewomen sprang up, pinning the suspect against the counter as the veteran held him still. "Who the hell are you?" one of them demanded. The chief raised her hand, silencing everyone. She stared at the veteran, her eyes narrowing as recognition flickered. "You served," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. He nodded once. "Saw him before you did. Didn't want to risk the crossfire." The chief bent, picking up the weapon, her voice tight. "This man's been stalking me for weeks. We couldn't catch him in the act until tonight." The policewomen exchanged shocked looks. The veteran just held the suspect until the cuffs clicked shut. Later, when the steakhouse calmed down and the suspect was hauled off, the chief approached his booth. His daughter had gone back to coloring.com, as if nothing had happened. "You saved my life," the chief said softly. "And hers." She nodded at his little girl. The veteran just shook his head. "I did what anyone should, but the chief knew better." She extended her hand, respect written in her eyes. "You ever need anything in this town, you call me." Not many people can read a room like that. Not many people act before it's too late. The single dad clasped her hand firmly. No words needed, and for the first time in a long time, the police chief, surrounded by her officers, by her authority, by her constant vigilance, felt safe. The steakhouse smelled of sizzling ribeyes and garlic butter, the air thick with laughter and the clink of glasses. Families and couples filled the booths, but in the far corner sat a man who didn't belong, not because of trouble, but because of the way he carried himself. He was a single dad, mid-30s, broad-shouldered, sharp eyes that scanned every entrance and exit without thinking. Years of service had carved that instinct into him. Across from him sat his 8-year-old daughter, a red crayon in her hand, as she filled in the outline of a pony on her coloring page. "Daddy, can I have ice cream after dinner?" she asked, looking up. "Depends," he said with a half-smile, cutting into his steak. "On if you finish those vegetables," she groaned, stabbing at her broccoli. The night felt ordinary till the double doors opened, heads turned. Police Chief Alexandra Monroe had arrived. She wasn't just another diner. She was the figure everyone in town respected. Strong, decisive, with a reputation for leading from the front. Tonight, She wore jeans and boots instead of a uniform, but her presence carried authority all the same. At her side were two of her younger officers, both women in their 20s, sharp but still green, eager to prove themselves. They laughed as they slid into a booth 2 tables away from the veteran and his daughter, but the laughter didn't reach Alexandra's eyes. Her gaze swept the room the way a soldier's does before stepping into hostile ground. The veteran noticed. He always noticed. That's when he saw him. At the bar sat a man in a black jacket, stirring his drink without sipping it. His eyes weren't on the TV or the bartender. They were locked on the chief. His left hand twitched against his thigh, jacket shifting just enough to reveal the matte black outline of a pistol tucked under his waistband. The veteran's heart rate didn't spike. His breath didn't change. Years of training made it automatic. He leaned toward his daughter. "Sweetheart," he whispered, "don't talk." She looked up at him with wide eyes, recognized that tone, and went quiet. He stood, casual, like he was heading toward the restrooms. His eyes never left the man at the bar. The chief noticed the movement too. Her laughter faltered. Something in the way he walked steady, measured, like a man who knew what danger looked like made her focus. Then her gaze flicked to the man at the bar. She saw it. The gun. Her hand dropped toward her concealed carry. But she was half a second too late. The veteran was already there. He moved behind the suspect like a shadow. His hand clamped the man's wrist, twisting it at just the right angle. The gun slipped free, clattering onto the hardwood floor. Before the suspect could shout, the veteran's forearm locked around his throat, pressing him against the bar without making a scene. Gasps spread across the steakhouse. Chairs scraped. The 2 young policewomen sprang from their booth, drawing their weapons. "Drop him," one shouted. "Easy," the veteran said calmly, pinning the man in place. Weapons on the ground. "He's not going anywhere." "Who are you?" the other officer demanded. Before he could answer, Chief Monroe stood. Her voice cut through the tension. "Hold your fire," she ordered. The younger cops froze, confused. She stepped closer, studying the man who had stopped a gunman with nothing but timing and precision. "You served," she said softly, recognition dawning in her eyes. The veteran gave the faintest nod. Saw him reaching. "Didn't want your night to end in a shootout." The chief bent down, picked up the weapon, and checked the magazine. Her jaw tightened. "This isn't random. This man has been stalking me for weeks. We couldn't get him in the act until tonight." Her officers exchanged stunned glances. The veteran tightened his grip on the suspect until the cuffs clicked shut. "You're welcome," he muttered, finally stepping back. Minutes later, the restaurant was calming down again. The suspect was hauled out in handcuffs, curses echoing as he was shoved into a squad car outside. The hum of conversation crept back into the air. At his booth, the veteran slid back in across from his daughter. She'd gone back to coloring, completely unfazed. Chief Monroe approached, this time alone. She rested her hand on the table. "You saved my life tonight, and probably half this restaurant." He shrugged. Old habits die hard. Her gaze dropped to his daughter, then back to him. "She's calm. Not many kids would be after that. She knows when I say, 'Don't talk,' it means trust me." For a moment, the hardened chief softened. She extended her hand. "You ever need anything in this town, you call me." Not many people can read a threat like that. Fewer still act before it's too late. He clasped her hand firmly. No words needed, and as she walked away, the veteran finally let himself exhale. For years, he'd thought his days of protecting others were behind him, but tonight proved otherwise. Some instincts never fade, and for Chief Alexandra Monroe, that night at the steakhouse was a reminder, sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the quiet one.